How's things going for you these days, man?
Woo, busy.
How many monitors do you have in your house?
In my house, enough.
It's a lot, I would assume. It was a lot before, and I think you've turned it up.
Well, so I'm actually in the bubble right now. Working on my basement, and so in order to be effective at completing that project, I had to move all of my gear into my garage, and because everything was just getting dusty downstairs, so I was just never able to work on finishing that project. So as a result, I built myself a little, I don't know, 6x7 cube in the garage. But then I'm like, well, there's a lot of dust in the garage because I have a lot of wood projects and dust from the outside. So I wrapped it in 6 mil plastic, and then it was getting hot, so I needed some airflow. And you can
So,
see up
so
there.
you're in a Breaking Bad clean room right now, like.
Yeah. No, it gets worse though, or better. So it gets hot. I need some airflow. Well, JC gave me like a portable AC unit.
Yeah.
Um, so that's piping to a carpet fan via cardboard, which then goes 8-inch tube up through the plastic, so I can get cold air in. And then I'm like, well, shoot, now I'm just pumping hot air out into the garage. So I had to run 6-inch tubing from that out to the outside so I wouldn't heat up my garage to 90 degrees. But it's nice and cool inside. So then I started getting frustrated that, when I'd come out in the morning, I wouldn't know what the temperature was. So I got a little Nest extension, thermostat extension, so I could kick on the AC via a TP-Link wireless switch. So, I could set a time to say, all right, it's 7 a.m. It's getting warm in the garage. Kick on the AC. So by the time I come down for work, it's nice and cool.
Nice. And all,
Um,
all this is so you can finish your basement?
yeah. So hold on, I'm not done yet.
Okay. All right.
So the problem is with fans on conference calls, it makes a lot of noise. And so I don't know how much background noise you get right now.
Sounds
But
good.
I got a little boom mic now.
Nice.
So I can hit the mute button on there without like really like, when you're on a call and everyone's like going on mute and you're like, you're not really paying attention. So now there's a perception that I'm paying attention, even though I could just hit the little mute button on there.
Yep.
So
I used to do that. The problem was I would forget to undo
yeah,
that one. That's a problem. I just signed it to a macro key on a Stream Deck, so I just use a macro key to mute and unmute. So, yep.
mine's color coded, so it shouldn't be too bad. So anyway, so then I'm like, well, working on laptops sucks, so I need to get my monitor back up in the garage, my monitors. And so I got my bigger monitor in the garage, and then I kept running into problems with time management. So back-to-back meetings, I'm constantly going, and I'm like, I can't keep the little time in the bottom taskbar up. So I put another TV up. I mounted it to my bubble. And so now my TV is literally just a clock with my next scheduled meetings.
So you've made a sock in your garage.
So I'm like, well, now that I got this TV up there, I might as well put all of my notifications up there.
So yes, you gotta.
And then I'm like, well, I'm running out of plugs now. So now I need like a 48,
Oh my
port
gosh.
power strip. Anyway, it keeps going and going and going. And then I'm like, well, I need a whiteboard now. So now I got a 6-foot whiteboard on the wall behind me.
Wow.
Um,
And
Anywho,
and
so
and no cars can park in the garage, I assume.
oh no, this is just in the third car, right? So I took over the third car and then stacked all my stuff up on the walls and put in shelves. No apps. My wife will absolutely kill me if she can't park her vehicle in the
It
garage.
is a Utah problem in the winter for sure.
Yep, but my poor truck gets to sit outside.
Nobody wants to scrape windows.
Nope. So that's why I got the remote start for my truck, so I wouldn't have to scrape the windows.
And you link that to a TP Link switch that goes off your Nest.
Mm, that was
Fires
fun.
that off.
Um,
What is Kevin Lean's InfoSec origin story? I mean, I
all
assume
right.
statute of limitations have because yours actually. I mean, we've chatted about this maybe forever ago, a little bit,
Yeah.
but I mean, there was some actual hacking involved there, right?
Well, I actually don't know how long the statutes last. So
You could give me an edited version.
But no, it's
this is recorded, just so I
I was
mean.
gonna say at this point we're recording if you're asking these questions, but it's Utah, it's a single party state, so I'm always assuming I'm being recorded. But yeah, it actually like that name started when I was probably like around 12. It was really stupid, but it stuck. And so growing up, I'd always been like the odd duck, the kind of the I wouldn't say the loner, but just the weird one of all of the groups. Never really fit into a stereotype. I was the nerd and the jock and the math nerd. And so I was always just the anomaly of whatever situation I was in. And so I was like, okay, cool. Hackers came out, and that the punk kid, Dr. Doom, and all those stupid names were coming out. And I'm like, well, I need a name. I'm nameless. I need a handle of some sort. So I was like, all right, well, the anomaly just doesn't really work very well because it's kind of stupid. So let's try and fluff it up a little bit. So I'm like, well, what is it in French? Les Animales or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, that's difficult to say. So let's just stick it together. And so it's now looks like Lean O'Malley. And so people used to call me Lean O'Malley for a while. But that's kind of where it started from, was just Lean O'Malley, all one word. And then people were just like, yeah, that's too much to say, so we're just going to call you Lean. And then probably like a decade later, people were like, so are you a druggie? And I'm like, well, what is that? What? And they're like, yeah, your name, Lean. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And they're like, well, it's like the drink. Like, I guess it's cough syrup and Sprite or something like that. I had no idea. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not, but sure, let's go with it. Right. So people now think I'm Lean because of the drink, but in reality, it was just some 12-year-old kids like trying to come up with something random and unique, right? Because that's what you want, is you want a handle that's unique and not given to you by somebody else. Because I've had plenty of handles that have been given me by somebody else that I'm just like, nope, not going to happen. And so it was just the one thing that you couldn't really explain, and no one really cared enough to ask, and so it just stuck. So now it's just Lean.
Right. I like Lean O'Malley. I didn't even know that was a thing. Hey, Lean O'Malley.
Nope. I'd say you're probably the second person that knows that, but now anybody who's going to be watching this,
I was going to say this is out there now. You're going Irish.
So now we need to change my name. So let's go Twitter poll.
Yeah.
No, Twitter poll for next name.
Awesome.
That'll end horribly.
So when did you get involved to whatever SAINTCON was at the time you got involved? I mean, I know they've changed the names of summits and things, but at some point you, early on, at least from going from public to more broader range, what year was that? How long has it been?
I'm horrible with timelines, so I'll just go back as far as I can remember, which may be yesterday's lunch.
Was it good?
It was. I don't know. I really don't know. It was definitely not SAINTCON because that was a rebranding later on.
But the same group, same people.
So, yeah, I mean, it started, and I'm sure Troy's probably mentioned this. It started in the education sector as a way to kind of help those in education and state agencies kind of share information and keep up to date on the latest security trends. Because if you're a general IT admin, you're not able to get out to all of the security specific cons. And at that time, there weren't a lot out there. And so it was a way to kind of bring that back and do some internal sharing. And so I think initially it was the Security Summit for the Utah Education Network Security Summit, because that's kind of where it started. And then because there was no like non-profit, not-for-profit organization at that point. And so it was really kind of crowdsourced by all of the volunteers in the education space, and a lot of the universities, because it was education specific, were able to volunteer up some space. And so I missed the first few years when it was at the U. But then there was like a weekly call, Tuesday calls, that was just you hop on and you kind of get a brain dump of the latest security threats. And back then it was, hey, watch out for SSH brute forcing from China. That's picking up in the Utah space. So, keep an eye out on that. And, back then, the USU security group was probably one of the main contributors to a lot of that, what we would now call, threat intelligence, so to speak, because they were very well up to speed on all of the latest attack vectors, and they were constantly watching them. And so, me being like 19 or 20 years old at the time. I don't even know. I was working for a small college in Price, Utah. At the time, it was called College of Eastern Utah, and we didn't have a security team. And so, the CIO said, "Hey, you should probably hop on these security calls because we should be keeping an eye on this stuff." And that's where it started. And then I think the first conference I went to, summit, if you will, was either Snow South or somewhere down in Richfield. And that's where, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 20-year-old Lean was like, okay, this is legit.
That was Lean O'Malley. That was Lean O'Malley back then.
At that point, I think it was like, I hadn't adopted Lean, and Lean O'Malley was just weird. And so it was just like, yeah, I'm a kid. I'm this punk kid, teach me all the ways of the hacker. And that was when there was a kind of a CTF. It was just kind of thrown together. But I remember, web cracking was one of the first challenges back then. And that was just like, all right, how do I get my Orinoco gold card? Let's do this PC, the little PCM CIA slots, whatever. And I wanted to just start doing Wi-Fi hacking all the time. And so as they were cleaning up, this has kind of always been the nature of SAINTCON or Utah Saint or the security group in general was, all right, grab a power outlet or power plug, throw it in a box, help clean up. And because there's only like 60 people maybe. And so while we're packing up, I'm like, hey, Troy, this is great. How can I be involved next year? And the look on his face was, okay, new blood. I got this. You're done.
He's a shark. And so just smells it in the water.
Yeah. He just smelled it, and he's like, all right, you want to be involved next year? Let's do this.
You're running it.
And that's just right there, and that's where, it digressed into just the laundry list of things that we wanted to do in the short amount of time, and the evolution over the years of how that actually came to be. It actually turned into probably between the year that I went the first year and the second year, which I think ended up being in St. George, it started forming its own identity. So that was, at that point, it was like, okay, let's brand this, let's make this an actual brand. And we kind of ran it as like a security summit for a few years. And it was always just, hey, who's available to work on something or put something together or put a talk together. And that's where Troy's just like, hey, you're going to do a talk on Nmap. And I'm like, okay. He's like, yeah, just go figure it out. And I'm like, okay. Oh, sure. I'll do that. Oh, and you're going to write a workbook around it too, because it's going to be a training. All right, let's do it. Why not?
I think that workbook still exists. I think I ran across it like 4 years ago.
Yeah, that was actually 2010. So I was probably 2 or 3 years in, and I found that on my Dropbox not too long ago. Nmap, 40-page book, Kevin Howard.
And I look at it now. A lot of it's still the same.
It is, yeah. I look at it now, like the scripting engines just got more plugins, all of the same stuff. And I'm like, all it was just an options book, right. All triggers. The switches available, triggers. And so, but the point was, Troy didn't really care if I executed on the training. That was his way to say, you're going to go learn something inside and out. And by being the trainer, you're going to learn more about it than everybody who you're training. Right. And so getting into like Nmap at that level of detail, I had never even known was possible. And then I'm seeing things like, the Christmas switch. What does that do? Why does it work that way? And what is networking really?
That one level? Just is options equal yes.
Yeah. Turn everything on.
Yeah.
Be noisy, blow it all up, right? Yeah. Throw every fin, reset at it you can. And so then I'm like, well, what's a fin? What's a reset? What are all of these things? And all of a sudden I'm in the rabbit hole, right? And that's one thing that Troy's always been successful at is you give him a little bit of attention and he's going to guide you into the rabbit hole that best suits you. And it's kind of funny to digress a little bit. He told me something later on when I was actually working for him. He's like, I want you to come and learn so that you can realize that you don't know what you don't know. And I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, you have no idea how much you don't know. And at this point, like I've been running the network at the college. I swapped out the the email servers, the Wi-Fi, the VoIP system, and I've done what I think is all. And cool, I can throw some VLANs on a switch. And I'm like, I got networking down, right? And it's all static routing and everything. And so, at this point I was like 22, 23, and we had a pen test. Domain admin before lunch, right? I'm domain admin before they even set foot on campus. It was bad. And 2,800 passwords cracked, right? Rainbow tables back in the day. And I'm just sitting back like, okay, maybe I have no idea what's going on. And at that point, you really start to question, like, do I want to dig in, or do I just want to continue kind of going down this career path of I kind of know some stuff. I can collect a paycheck. I can do my thing, and I'll go find some hobbies. But for those of us that have stuck in the industry, it's like, no, this bothers me. Why did they get domain admin before they even stepped foot on campus? How are they able to crack these passwords? And the whys become, they keep you up at night. And so by surrounding myself by everybody I could in the education space, I was able to absorb at a faster rate than I think most people have the opportunity to today. And so yet again, another use case for me being called the anomaly, because I was the young punk kid in an education space that had a lot of 15-year veteran, 20-year veterans that I could just absorb everything from. And so every year at SAINTCON, it was not really about what classes do I want to take or what do I want to work on. It was, who can I interact with the most to make that next jump? And so, yeah, there's so much more to that evolution. But
what does SAINT stand for? Is it just it's just all the religious people here?
No, Security Advisory and Incident Network Team. I'll probably be one of the few that know that.
Yeah, you know what? I've heard it like 10 times, and I still forget every time. I'm like, it has something to do with security, something to do. I don't remember.
Well, it's a play on words, right? Because we live in Utah, but at the same time, Troy wanted to build kind of a network team that was information sharing, security focused. Right. And it wasn't just security focused for security people, because back then when I was trying to get a job, there was no security position. Right. And even then, like, the colleges that were offering 4-year degrees I think there were like 3 of them across the country for actual cyber degrees, and they were all feeder programs to the 3-letter agencies. And so there was no security pool of resources that you could even tap into at that point. And that's where Saint kind of developed from, was just being able to get access to all of the security information, regardless of what position you held in an organization.
Gotcha. Your preference, do you prefer VGA upscaling issues or HDMI handshake issues?
You mean what caused more pain in the 3 months of playing around with it in my basement?
Yeah, I guess if you're in the camp of Aaron Toppins, you prefer VGA because you're still rocking a VGA laptop. Everybody else is HDMI.
But the problem is the VGA upscaling was also solid because we controlled the upscaling at that point, right? You put everyone on the lowest common denominator and it just works. HDMI issues with all of the syncing between the different projectors, and that's a different model number, even though they look identical. Yeah. Let's not even. Yeah.
Oh, but it works, but not on Macs.
It works until wait, Troy, what did you just do? I got a new Mac. Yeah, that doesn't work, man.
Gosh, yeah, exactly. There's some pain in this brief conversation. We won't dive too much in. Oh, speaking of pain, big fan of Fortinet APs, I assume.
Yeah. Big fan.
I still have like a personal burn spot from Fortinet APs from the Black Hat knock.
I think, if we go pull up some of those CNN articles, man, they could stand in front of a camera, but they can't stand behind their technology. Drink to that.
This year, no SAINTCON as we know it, right? There's some deviant versions of this, like this thing we're doing here. But
wait, I get a break?
What? Well, I was gonna say, what are you gonna do with that free time?
Well,
You're not planning a ton of
challenges, but not according to the email. The email has committed me to doing all kinds of things, and then all of my contests are like, maybe we'll skip a year. It's hard, right? Because we want to deliver quality content, because that's one thing that I think SAINTCON has been proud of over the decade that I've been a part of it. I don't even know, decade plus. You put out quality, right? Because it's not just, hey, we're going to rush it. We're just going to, pack the house and people walk away. Okay, I kind of got 10% of that. No, it's we're going to bring as the best of the best as much as possible without burning out our volunteers, right? Because it is 90% volunteer run, actually almost 100%, minus the
Wait, you get paid?
Nope.
Yeah, I was like, who's getting? I don't know if anybody's getting paid. The venue,
vendors,
the venue's getting paid.
Yeah, the venues, right? Yeah. The venue is kind of where I was going with that, because they put in a lot of work too, right? But everybody that works at Saint has never been paid. It's also one of the admirable aspects of it is we do it for the love. And so trying to produce quality contests and make them new and creative each year so people can learn and grow has been very challenging, right? How do you one up yourself year over year for a decade straight and not reach a point where you've just become, you only get to focus on the 1% that actually understand what you're doing anymore? And that's the value I got out of SAINTCON early on, and I'm just going to keep it SAINTCON for now, was every year I was able to exponentially grow as a security practitioner. And so by adopting those same philosophies, bringing that level of effort to SAINTCON each year, we hope to bring the audience up exponentially every year. The challenge is when you start cycling in a lot of new people that did not get the first few years of exponential growth, they are so far behind that you're now resetting content. And so how can we cycle through content while still pushing the edge of those really gifted individuals? You know, the vault is a perfect example. You know, we have to throw in some random challenges to say, you know what, we don't think this is possible, but we're going to test you. And a good example of that is the Snowfensive team, JC Snow, Ronan, and Peeps, where we threw in a fingerprint scanner on a safe, not thinking anybody was going to be successful. And they spent 36 hours straight trying to reverse engineer that thing, and it worked.
Right.
They show up with a copy of my fingerprint that they got from somewhere and broke into the safe. And so if you don't put those things out there, you're not forcing people to hit that next level. But how do you do that while still maintaining, hey, you've never seen the vault, you've never picked a safe, you've never picked a door lock, get in and still have fun, right? And so that's the battle with all of the challenges that we have. Hackers Challenge, a lot of the threat hunting challenges, lock picking. How do you maintain that level where you're still, you know, you're on both ends of the spectrum? And so this year is going to be specifically difficult where it has to be virtual. We have a lot of content that's typically you have to be physically present for, because you need hands-on and you need team interaction and you need to be able to kind of bounce ideas off of each other. So there are a lot of team sports, and you don't have that virtually as much. And so this year, I would like to say that I'm taking a year off, but something tells me that we just got to find something that can keep that feeling alive.
Right. It is tougher virtually, right? Like in this scenario, we would be sitting in the hallway talking, and there'd be 5 or 6 people participating in some level or not, listening in, chatting.
Yeah.
And let alone we're probably, you know, going to hug on the way in and hug on the way out. And that's a little harder to do virtually. It's like, cool. But so, I mean, it is sad. Yeah. It's like, you know, I have an InfoSec con joke, right? Oh, wait, no, I don't. It's been canceled. They've all been canceled. There's no, everything is just canceled on me right now. But yeah. I guess to wrap it up, you have anything you want to add? Questions you want to ask? Anything you want to go over? Give you a little voice at the horn.
I had zero expectations of this call, so
I still do.
It was what, you know, an hour ago. I'm like, you know, I need to come up with something I want to talk about, and it's. The InfoSec community has grown to a point where it's not manageable anymore, in the sense of, you know, SAINTCON is a con that used to be local to Utah, specific to education. We grew to the private sector. We grew outside of Utah very quickly. I mean, now we're approaching 1,500 people each year, and we have to cap it. It's its own entity. DerbyCon was its own entity, ShmooCon. And so what you're seeing is the industry as a whole is its own personality, and no one really has control over it. And there's a lot of pros and cons to that. And where I think we're struggling a little bit is, you know, I'm not even one of the graybeards, and I've been around for over a decade, and I've seen it change so much to the point where getting into the industry is almost as difficult as staying in it and not burning out. And so how do you know where to get your source material, your content, who to network with? If you ask someone, how did you get into security? Each generation will tell you something different because of the evolution of technology.
Even the same generation, our own generation, paths from
because everyone's
certs, degrees, just hack it, GitHub it, all over. Which is why I like to ask people their origin story, because it's such a variance of how did you do this, you know? Like
I'm no different, right? I had a very unique opportunity to break into the environment, and then other times I was forced. You know, I had two mentors that were like, "You're going to do this. You're going to enjoy it," and I did, and I am where I am today because of it. And so, the hard part is how do we train the next generation with the massive? Well, I mean, we're in a negative unemployment field, right? And how do we? You know, we're hiring security analysts and junior engineers all over the place at such an inexperienced level, but we're expecting them to be seasoned professionals. And so when they screw up, there's substantial impact to even micro issues. And that's where I think we're setting up the next generation for failure. And so one of the things I'd like to do in the Saint community specifically is we have a lot of expertise in a lot of different areas, and we're a smaller community, that we need to be able to start building mentorship programs for the next generation, at least here locally to start, because there's a lot of cybersecurity clubs locally that I'm trying to be a part of, but it's a matter of time. Not a lot of people that, you know, are into their careers have a lot of time. Either they've got a ton of kids, or, you know, they're burned out from the day job, so they just want to focus on their hobbies. But if we lose sight of the next generation and we just expect them to kind of Google everything and figure it out, it's just not going to end well. There's too many things changing too quickly to keep up. And it's only becoming a compounding problem. But I don't have a solution for that. So what I like to do is just find those few that want to just get completely absorbed with everything and just guide them in the right direction of, hey, you're interested in this one thing. Here's all of the resources I have available to me over the decade plus that I've been in the industry. If you can consume it, consume it. Drink from the fire hose. If not, here is the next best person that I know of that has all of that information or more, that I may not be experienced with. Have fun.
Right.
And so it's tough.
I'm with you on that. I'm a big proponent of trying to help people out when they are willing to put in the effort, right? So there's a lot of people who will say things but don't actually want to do the work, and that doesn't go very far. But the people who, and you can tell, and they're night and day, and some people are like, hey, I want to learn this. I want to know more about this, and I will whoever wants to watch this, hit me up. If you're really going to do it, like, I'll buy you that book. Go do it, right? Like, but I'm not going to buy you a book to sit on your shelf, and I would hope that at some point you would turn around and do the same or give that to somebody else type of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. I don't know if you can come up with a better way to formalize that. Let me know. I'm in.
Yeah, no, I think it's to the point where if we don't start something soon, I don't know how much longer the industry will hold up. You're already seeing the implosions on Twitter. My opinion of how I got into the industry is right, not yours.
Yeah.
Or, the imposter syndrome that's gone out of control. I'm starting to see a huge separation inside of the community. But if you come into it with, I'm going to put in the effort, you're going to get out what you put in. And it's an industry that I love and I've been a part of for a long time, and I will continue to be a part of because it's so fascinating and it's never boring. You're always behind, so you always feel like a failure. But that's when you know that if you feel successful, then something's wrong. You're not looking at it right. So constant state of learning is kind of where I enjoy it.
Well, thanks for getting deep with me, Mr. Lean O'Malley. We'll give you back your night, and look forward to chatting you later and seeing you in person.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Right, peace.